All right, welcome to the Natural Awakening podcast with me, your host, Wiston, and today's guest, Captain Blondy on X. And Captain, you can choose whether to reveal your real name or not. Entirely up to you. You are actually a captain.
Yes, I am actually a captain. I do run a 40-foot transport ferry professionally. Um, and I've got my captain's license in 2011. So been started working on boats when I was 12. Started working on deep sea charter fishing boats when I was 12. Um, so long time in the marine industry. I might try and escape at some point, but the tentacles are strong,
But the life at sea has treated you reasonably well over the years. You're still doing it, still enjoy it.
Yeah, it's the ocean is a mean temptress. Once she gets her claws on you, it's kind of hard to get away. She's so pretty and nice and anyway.
Sparkling, wavy, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Much like
rough.
reality.
Oh. You know, she does what she wants when she wants and does not give a fuck.
A harsh teacher, but a good one
Yeah, yeah,
maybe.
we could learn a lot from the ocean. She don't hold resentments. She's blowing 30 one day and white caps and flat calm the next, and has nothing to apologize for it. Doesn't feel bad about it. But yeah, I guess we'll start with that other question. Um,
Yeah, yeah. So if you want to just provide what that'll kind of contextualize what we'll talk about a little later on, your practice. I know you're into mystical Christianity. You've also done a bunch of Buddhist practice.
mhm,
So yeah, anything you think would be valuable to kind of contextualize the meat of it.
yeah,
That'll come a little
and
later
that's
on.
that's kind of my corner. My corner is kind of there's two practice veins have bled together, um, so that mystical Christianity and Buddhism are like in my blood and breath, and at this point. But the funny thing is, one of my first memories as a child was going to, and this is kind of on the Buddhist side, um, was going to see my godmother's father, who was dying at the time. And he was literally drinking morphine from a glass. That's how much pain he was in. Um, and I remember I sat in the corner and I crossed my legs and I put my hands in this kind of position. And I sat there and I don't know what I did. I can't remember exactly the state I went into, but I wasn't in an ordinary state. And my godmother looked over and said, "Are you meditating?" And I thought to myself, "Oh, that's the word for it." Um,
Solemn
so
contemplation as a child in the
it's
presence of
kind
death.
it's been there from the beginning. Um, and it's kind of the funny thing is there's some people who we don't have a choice.
Hmm.
The contemplative path is thrust upon us, and we kind of don't really have a choice.
Yeah,
It was kind of my path. Um,
I feel much the same, but that's my
yeah,
story.
yeah,
Today it's you.
yeah. So that was kind of somewhat the beginning, but I came up, my parents are kind of nondescript. My father was raised Anglican, my mother Presbyterian, but neither of them really practiced. Um, my mother's father was, deep in the church. So, growing up, he made us we went to Sunday school a little bit, and wasn't really that interested. It wasn't until college that I really got into Christianity. Until then, I was pretty much very much more exploratory. In college, I studied philosophy and religion. Um, and I think one of the first books I read was Thich Nhat Hanh's book, and I learned, basic breathing, breath counting. And then I got big into Carlos Castaneda and Don Miguel Ruiz, and the Toltec tradition. Um, and yeah, that got to some really weird places. I would, I remember at college, I was known for not having a cell phone. So I didn't have a cell phone. I literally posted office hours on my door senior year, and people would show up to them. And like my brother showed up to find me one time, and literally he ran into all my friends, and then they spent the afternoon looking for me, because I was known to spend afternoons in particular trees and gaze at the shadows. which is
Nice.
kind of one of Carlos Castaneda's practices, which is really incredible. It's part of what he called not doing. So we've trained our attention not to notice shadows, not to notice the spaces between words, the spaces between lines. Um, we've been trained to eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, work 9 to 5. So part of that practice is changing those schedules and changing that, to loosen the fixation of attention, to free it up to visit other worlds and realms and everything else. So that's, I mean, and that's, you got to be careful with it because this is high end fucking crazy shit. Like,
I mean,
you know,
yeah, visiting
you need
alternate
to put
realms
on
and
the ground, and that's one of my big flaws is I need to remember to come back down to earth every now and then. But
warping the ocean. Does that help with that?
no, no,
Oh well, well,
and
no.
I live on a boat too. Um,
So you're always in motion, always in flux, not never,
yeah,
never, never fixated, never with your feet on the ground.
well, yeah, no. I mean, I'm getting better at that. I'm getting a lot better. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a really cool practice, especially certain times of the day, the afternoon when you get that stronger sun and you get the longer shadows. And leaves and trees are good because they don't stay fixed, they're moving with the wind. And then you kind of soften attention and just let it rest
Hmm.
on the shadows, and just all sorts of weird stuff will happen. The shadows will start to turn purple, and you basically, it's a way of, you lose fixation on the normal
Yep.
world. It goes away. Um, and
I've done
it
a lot of
shuts
very similar
down.
practices, though not getting it from Carlos Castaneda. Yep.
Yeah. Um, and then what else did I? And then in college I was studying philosophy and religion, so reading Plato and
Hmm.
Aristotle and
Have you
Kant
found your
and
way out of the cave yet? What's it like up there?
no, I don't. know. But I find that really, really helped because there's a lot of practitioners I find who have a very graspy hold of logic, and logic can be incredibly important. Um, and it's good to actually be able to, do these practices, but then place them in a working contextual framework.
Yep.
That can
Yep.
be very good
A
too.
scaffold, otherwise you can really go off the deep end and maybe not come back for a while, if ever.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, you know, Socratic questioning is one of the most profound mystical practices there is, just sitting down and asking questions.
What do I
It's,
actually know?
yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Like precisely where? How? What?
yeah,
That's Zen inquiry right there. I mean, getting to the bottom of it. Who is this? What is this?
yeah,
How do I know? What is
yeah,
what? Huh?
yeah, definitely. And I also really loved, I mean, so I guess that was my early, I did the early young man's practice of working really hard and, practicing really hard and kind of fucking myself up. Kind of getting it wrong a lot.
Oh, I don't know what that's like. I can't imagine how what
you know and I
how
see
could
young
anyone ever do that? I mean,
and I see young men now doing it, and I'm just like, well, I can't, it's kind of a phase. I can kind of say what I can say, but
you're gonna do
yeah,
you.
yeah, unfortunately it's just you grow out of it. And you learn how to be gentle with yourself, and that's really important, you know.
I'm
The
still working on that bit myself.
Yeah, I think that's a lifetime
Yeah.
project. Um, Um, but what else did I do specifically in college? There was a really cool trip I went, and this is kind of how I ended up converting to Orthodox Christianity, was because one of my professors was originally a Zen Buddhist for 20, 30 years. Went to Japan, practiced, one
Right.
of the first Westerners in Japan. I think he's in his early 80s now, because I was college 2006 to 2010,
Where'd you
which is a
study?
Eckerd College in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Hmm.
It's a small liberal arts school on the west coast of Florida there. Um, and he had a really profound depth of practice in Zen and then converted to Orthodox Christianity. And, he wasn't most people think about, conversions to Christianity. They think about Protestants and they think about
Sure.
evangelical and
The
born again.
descent of the spirit,
Yeah,
born
yeah.
again.
This is Orthodoxy does not apply to any of our rules or understanding of Christianity in the West. Okay, it's more foreign to the Western mind than Buddhism.
Is this Eastern Orthodox or
Eastern
like
Orthodox.
what you'll find in Greece and Russia?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, and so we ended up going on a trip to Greece, Egypt, and then we were supposed to go to Turkey. I didn't make it to Turkey. I got kicked off the train at the border with Greece and sent back. But that's a different story. Um, the amazing thing about going to Greece and Egypt is, we went and met profound practitioners of this tradition.
right. Yeah.
And
Like enclosed monks who had been in mostly solitary contemplation for decades, that kind of thing, or like cave
um,
dwellers.
no, no, we didn't get that far because most of those in Greece, at least, are on a peninsula.
Mount Athos, right?
Yeah, and that's only accessible by men. Um, so, none of the females would have been able to go. But we went to and there's they're in Greece, they're walking the streets. They're not just
Right.
in the caves.
Sure.
Just walking around Athens. We had this little parish priest, old guy, just come out with an olive branch and some water and just come out, big smile, and just, can I bless you? And then a bless you, come bring in, look at the church. And oh, isn't it? And just it's just pure love and joy, no judgment, and just wanted to share the light. He's
Right, of
not
course.
um, not pushing anything at all. Um, and
Not just
then
worshiping Christ, but becoming Christ-like.
yeah, yeah, literally, yeah. I mean, it's catharsis, illumination, theosis. The three stages of the Jesus prayer are the prayer of the lips, the prayer of the mind, and then the prayer of the heart. Um, and that last one comes and goes for me. That takes a long time to get.
Could you go into a little bit more detail? I imagine it'd be interesting. I mean, it'd be interesting for me to hear, but hopefully it'll be interesting to others. If not, sorry, but I am interested in the details. So, how does
Yeah.
that
So
progression go?
in the tradition known as hesychasm, in Orthodoxy, which is it's a tradition that spans not just Eastern Orthodox, but almost all the Orthodox churches, the Syriac Church, the Nestorian Church, the Coptic Church, because there's a whole bunch of little schisms, and we could spend fucking hours going over that.
Let's
I'm
not.
not. But the tradition of hesychasm, the repetition of the Jesus prayer, that spirituality is pretty much the same. If you go to the desert of Egypt, you go to Mount Athos, it's pretty much the same. They're doing the same practice, really. And that's um, the repetition of Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, a sinner. Um, and that's not the prayer I say. And traditionally, in the historic tradition, the ancient tradition, any short prayer would do. So if
Sure.
you read the sayings of the Desert Fathers or the Paradise of the Fathers from the Coptic tradition, or some of these more original, where the tradition came from, which was the Egyptian desert, short story, basically what happened was Christianity started, the way people got theosis with Christ was through martyrdom. As soon as Christianity was adopted as a main established religion, that's when the monastic tradition started 200 years later. And that's why people went out into the desert and started the contemplative tradition, because as an established religion, the other methods weren't available
Yeah.
for Satori. So that's how, you know, that desert tradition started. And in that desert tradition, you can see there was practitioners who would use different versions of short prayers, not just Lord
Yeah.
Jesus, have mercy on
I
me,
mean,
a sinner.
this is very similar. I'm sure you're aware to what you'll find in Hindu or Vajrayana Buddhist tantra, right?
Yeah,
This repetition of mantras or East Asian esoteric Buddhism.
yeah.
Um,
And the translation that doesn't get translated into the West from those mantra traditions, because of some traditions, I feel like TM, where they say the mantra is just a sound. In
mm.
prayer, if you don't mean it,
It's
fucking
no,
nothing.
no, you have to pray with your whole body and mind ceaselessly day and
Yeah,
night if
yeah,
you're actually
yeah,
praying in that,
yeah,
really use that method. Called the
yeah,
koan method in Zen is exactly the same. Whole body and mind, all 84,000 pores, 365 bones of the body, day and night.
yeah, yeah. Once you're at the higher levels of prayer, you're chewing on meaning silently in your heart,
Yeah,
kind of without the words anymore.
yeah,
Uh,
same,
or the
same with
words,
mantra, same with koan. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's exactly the same. But in the West, I feel like a lot of people have been told this lie. It's just you just repeat the sound and the sound. No, no. That's, I don't know, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and the TM tradition, sure, go do it, but I don't know it, and that doesn't, no, no. For
well, we don't need
me,
to comment. That's not how
yeah,
I've been instructed.
I have no idea how that tradition works. I'm commenting on it as an outsider who knows fucking nothing. So my whatever I say doesn't mean anything. I just find a lot of kind of spiritualists kind of in the
Hmm.
West have gotten this misunderstanding about how to use mantra, and that it's actually,
Or prayer for that matter. I mean, same thing.
yeah, it's a direct connection with meaning. You got to say it and mean it, and you can't force that meaning.
Mm-mm.
Um,
The meaning comes through the repetition, in
yeah,
fact. Speaking with
yeah,
my
it
own
comes
practice with
through
mantra.
the invitation. It comes through the intention to connect with the meaning.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's one of the first lessons in prayer is I can't force this myself. It's an encounter. It's up to meaning to come to me and
Yeah.
meet me halfway. All I can do is go halfway and do my best. Um, and in this tradition, it's not just prayer, but watchfulness and prayer.
Right. You need
And
both.
in the Greek, yeah, in the Greek they call it nepsis. Um, and this is the other half of prayer. One half is connecting with meaning. The other half is learning the state of awake watchfulness,
Mindfulness, sati.
mindfulness. Yes, the same thing. um, and combining the two.
Hmm.
So, and there's not just one way to pray. When you're in one state, you can pray with fervor, and others in other moods or settings, or you can pray with more watchfulness and quiet silence.
Quiet.
And
You can vary the tone or the repetition. I don't know how it is for you, but if I'm doing mantra practice, like depending on the energy, what time of day it is, yeah, it varies, really varies. I imagine it's the same.
yeah, and you can also emphasize nepsis in one practice period and connecting with meaning in the other. So if you wanted to, you could say the word and then take the time to notice the space between repetitions. So
Mm-hmm.
space, say nothing but love. That's what I say. I say nothing but love. That's my mantra. Um, and anyway, so yeah, you don't have to always, other times, you with watchfulness and just repeating the words and soaking in the space and the silence in between, bang, the meaning comes on its own,
Yeah.
you know. And um, hmm. So yeah, when I was in Greece, it's amazing to now I can look back and I can see well, now I can see this sort of stuff, but I can see the energetic glowing of these people, that I can look back and see that more clearly. And one of the most profound experiences I had um, wasn't in Greece, but actually in the Egyptian desert where this tradition started. Um, we went to the monastery of St. Anthony the Great, and then again to the monastery of St. Paul of Thebes, who were the two founders of the desert tradition of Christian monasticism. Um, and at St. Paul's Monastery, we were given a tour of this monastery by this cute little elderly little monk called Father Thomas. And the man's, a living, walking saint. I mean, they're not dead.
Just
He's,
radiates love
oh, 100%.
and accepting presence, nothing but that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. I've met such
And
people.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's quite something.
Yeah, it really is. And he started off the tour all quiet, and he said, we'll go it to the well where Saint Paul he prayed, and water came out of the rock, and it's the same stream that's been flowing for, who knows, 2,500, 1,500 years or whatever, 1,800 years. Um, and he says, "This is the holy water," and he scoops out a little cup. And then he just goes, "I bless you," and started splashing people and giggling. And just started splashing everybody with the water. And it was just hysterical. It caught everyone off guard. Um, he just started pouring cups of water down people's heads and stuff. It was absolutely hysterical. Um, and the amazing thing in the Coptic tradition, when you're having real communication with someone, it's not just eye contact and verbal contact. They also like physical contact. So when he was talking to you, and he didn't give anyone any more attention than anyone else.
Mhm.
He radiated the love equally to everyone at all times.
Yep.
Um, and
Now that's
when
some
he,
metta bhavana right there.
yeah, yeah. Um, and when he would talk to you, he would hold your hand with both his hands. He would kind of clasp it
Uh-huh.
like that, and look at you, and it's just like you're sucked in, you're finished. It's like looking at a little puppy or whatever. And after the 2-hour tour, we did a little tour of the monastery. We had a little meal, and literally, you had 25 college students and the professor crying and hugging this man, and no one wanted to leave.
Yeah,
You would have spent the rest of your life with him. You
sure.
know, yeah. And that's I'm sure he gets angry, and things happen every now and then. No one's perfect for sure. But just seeing the fruit of that, like whatever it was, 40, 50 years of practice.
Yeah, it shows. It's
Yeah,
undeniable.
yeah.
If
It's 100% undeniable. And it kind of influenced the rest of my life. That's part of the reason I've been working, because not only do I run boats, I run a transport ferry for a hotel. And before that, I did, charter work. I've been a tour guide because of Father Thomas. So that's why I do what I do. Because I live in a holiday destination, and so they come in, they're basically, tripping because the world's so pretty.
sure.
Um, so that's why I'm a tour guide.
And
Um,
you're the jolly ferryman.
yeah, the jolly ferryman who takes people back and forth and leads them through this strange new world that they just showed up in.
Well, I'm
Very
glad you found that
colorful,
role. I mean, and
pretty.
you're carrying that forward, in your own way.
Uh, yeah. Anyway, don't mind me. There might be more tears. Uh,
No, 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 don't. I mean,
uh,
you're crying for a reason. This is obviously very, very meaningful, poignant.
yeah, and you know, anyway, so that's how I started into Orthodox Christianity. And then after college, I spent 3 months at a Russian monastery in Northern California, the monastery of St. John of Shanghai and San Francisco. Um, and that was, a really amazing experience. I probably would have stayed if I could. I'm not American, so that's not
I
gonna
see.
work. Um, and not much I really want to say about that practice. I mean, it just cemented, I did 3 months of 10 plus hours a day of practice. That kind of
That'll
just,
do it.
yeah,
That all, yeah.
it sets the foundation. Um, and then after that, I went home. And then I did the Hoffman quadrinity process, which my whole family has done. My parents, my brother, my sister, they sent me. They're like, "You're going." Um, and that's where I met my now wife, um, whatever it is, 14 years, I guess. Um, and I mean, that was an amazing experience. But that kind of is this kind of, it's a kind of like a dealing with deep emotional childhood patterning.
Sure.
The kind of stuff that a lot of times meditation, particularly, Some Buddhist and Hindu versions of meditation just do not
It doesn't address,
cover
it
at
doesn't go
all.
there sometimes. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, you'll
it just
find
doesn't address
we
those.
don't need to go through the examples of bad behavior or
Yeah, yeah. Of
issues
fully
that
like
teachers
of
have.
incredibly powerful people with incredibly powerful samadhi and insight and
And yet their behaviors are still at some level sometimes in some situations being driven by unresolved psychological baggage, just like plainly.
um so that was really, really good to do, I think. I think I did it a little too young. That's the kind of thing, and it kind of is a combination of this Jewish psychic, Bob Hoffman, who was living in, I think, San Fran in the 70s. And he was able to help some of the top psychiatrists in the area's worst cases when they couldn't. People who would have killed themselves if
Right.
it weren't for Bob Hoffman. And then Bob and these psychiatrists joined together to teach his process. So it's kind of like that 80s, emotional child type,
Yep.
mixed with some Jewish mysticism. You're dealing with the evil urge, and you're going up into the light and then down into, your depths. Um,
Some good light and shadow work.
yeah, yeah, light and shadow work. And I really have to tip my hat to like Stan Groff and some of the Western, you know, what do you call that branch of psychology? Uh,
Transpersonal psychology, I think. It's not something I
yeah,
looked into very much or participated in particularly, but I think that's what it's
yeah,
called.
but I kind of have to tip my hat. If you have deep emotional issues, then kind of the transpersonal hypnotherapy areas, especially the spiritual ones, can do things that meditation and, I still go see my therapist in this tradition in a couple times a year,
Awesome.
because that deep emotional baggage, I feel like that's a lifetime project.
No,
And
I
if
mean every teacher I've ever had who's honest, which is all of them, thankfully. They don't hide, they don't bullshit. They're like, oh yeah, no, I've still got shit to work on, and that will continue until I drop dead.
yeah, yeah. Um, because we can't choose what we feel, when we feel it, or why we feel it, but we can do the work to change it over time. It's You can't snap your fingers with emotions. Um,
However much we would like to, especially people like me who are somewhat impatient. Oh, I'm
yeah.
feeling this again. I thought I dealt with this. Please, no, no more.
And a lot of times we need a clear, kind, loving mirror to show us the truth about ourselves.
I,
It's
I certainly benefited from that from my teachers. Absolutely. I couldn't have the courage or the steadfastness to face it otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, if we could see our sins ourselves, right? I mean, um,
Yeah, yeah, yep.
anyway, uh, so where was I? So I did the Hoffman process, met my wife, and then what happened? So then came the long and glorious dark night, which is just about over. Um, so the next major kind of catastrophe was in 2012. Wife and I were living outside of Boston at the time in this old house that didn't have a lightning rod. Um, I was working as like a landscape gardener at the time, so a storm rolled in. I couldn't work. I came home and was just chilling. I think it was like 10:30 in the morning. I just eaten some breakfast, listening to this rain and lightning storm. And then next thing you know, there's someone knocking at the door. The TV is green. It's still on, but it's green. And the interesting thing, the TV was muted. But at the time when I was sitting down in the storm, I was sitting down listening to the storm, and just kind of let my attention soak into the storm to the point where, I was the sound of the rain, and I was
Hmm.
that all of that stuff wasn't coming through a pair of ears and, happening to a self. It was happening as such in awareness.
Hmm.
Right. So I go from listening to the storm as such in awareness to next thing you know, the TV's green, it's sunny outside, and there's someone knocking on the door. And I go down and I open the door and it's a fireman. And he says, yeah, we just, put a fire out in the building next door, which is literally about 60 feet away from my house at the time. And he said apparently it was fork lightning. We just wanted to check on a couple of the buildings next door just to, see if everything's fine. He took a look at the breaker switch and the wiring, said, yeah, everything's good, um, which is amazing. I don't know how the fuck. Um, and I thought I was fine, right? It didn't really occur to me to think, dude, what the fuck? Why is a TV green? Why is it sunny outside? Why did you
What
not hear
happened? Yeah.
why did you not hear the sirens? You know, they put a fire out in the building next door. Everyone was outside, like the thing was smoking.
And you were not there for any of that.
Right? And that building had a lightning rod.
Right.
Mine didn't. So I was like, okay, cool, whatever. I didn't think about any of that. My first thought is, let me go check on my neighbor, make sure she's okay, and her building's okay because the fireman didn't check on her. So I went over, knocked on the door, checked on her. Everything was fine. I thought everything was cool. Um, it wasn't till my wife got home later and spoke to my neighbor, and she was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, your husband was fully drunk at like 10:30 this morning. He came over and he was, stumbling and slurring his words, and I was not drunk."
Sure. But you were out of it and not aware that you were. Yeah.
In case people are wondering, what actually happened was I was struck by lightning.
Yeah.
Lightning had
In case
struck
that
my
hasn't become
building.
obvious yet.
Yeah. In case it's not obvious, and I was KO'd for an unknown amount of time, probably at least half an hour, two
Woof.
and a half.
Yeah.
Um, and my wife could have very well come home to a body that day. I had no physical injuries at all. As like an idiot, I never went to a doctor about it. I never went to emergency because part of a lightning strike injury is amnesia.
Right.
Uh, It took me about a year or two to fully acknowledge that I had missed time, for it to fully dawn on me. And of course, I knew, but I didn't know. It's one of those sort of type situations. Um, I remember I had a headache above my head for about a week after that. And then I felt fine for the next year or two. But then, like, slowly over time, it wasn't like a quick snap, but slowly over time, it felt like my soul was sucked out of my body. The world turned gray, meaning disappeared. I couldn't repeat nothing but love and connect with it anymore. I was just saying the words.
Hmm.
Uh, let's see what else. I mean, the only emotion I could really experience was like anger.
Hmm.
And then, anyway, but so I go through all that. I remember, it kind of fucked up my life because I had a hard time working without
Right.
a
Of
self,
course.
without a purpose, without a meaning. I'd get
Yeah. That
up.
navigation system is just knocked out. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I still had the internal dialogue, but it couldn't hook anything. There was no meat for the thoughts to hook. So I remember getting up in the morning and just sitting there for hours and just thoughts coming through, and none of them could make me do anything,
Right.
which is kind of terrifying. Kind of not what you want. Everyone thinks, "Ooh, this is a great meditative state." No, this is kind of an injury. It's both, you know. And the other crazy thing that would happen, and this is a couple years after that happened for a year or two, is some mornings I would wake up, but then I couldn't move, and I would just tingle from head to toe for like an hour or two. No internal dialogue, just lay there, and not good tingling. It's like
Sure.
electricity running all through my body.
Were you paralyzed? I've had sleep paralysis experiences like that, but they haven't lasted long.
No, this is something particular to lightning strike injuries, and other brain injuries. I think they call it a fugue state,
Uh-huh.
F-U-G-U,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
a fugue state. So I just go into that and just um, and my best guess as to what was happening then is that the wiring that was fried was taking itself apart. The body put itself in neutral and said, we got to take all these shitty wires down, so you cannot function right now while we do this. Maintenance team is in, the power's off while we change the wires. But as a human being, you can't do that. So that's what the body does. And this is what's finally, this is still healing for me because I have to acknowledge how right it was for my body to do that.
Right. Yeah. But of course,
I,
in the at
it
the moment.
pissed me off because I'm broke. I'm trying to make money. I'm whatever it was. I'm living in my parents' house. I'm trying to fucking 25, 26 with a wife. What the fuck am I doing? And all this frustration. But now I can see this is compassion. My body had to do that.
Yeah.
There's and I have to, this is part of my process now is thanking my body for surviving this and doing what it had to do.
Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, you almost died, and then it took some time to recover, right?
and right, still recovering. Um, so then that's what 2012, 13, 14. And then in about 2017, it was a slow descent into fucking hell where nothing was real, nothing mattered. Literally, there was a few times I was suicidal.
Hmm.
Um,
We're talking
not
like derealization, depersonalization,
a
like
whole
kind of
fucking thing.
classic DPDR, like nasty symptomatology. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, plus fugue states,
Yeah.
plus other things. Um, and plus, I was, smoking a whole pile of pot, drinking heavily at a couple points for a year or two through that. But still somehow practicing. Fuck, right? Still somehow doing a lot of the practices I'd learned before this naturally continued. So I'd still repeat my mantra, nothing but love. I'd still do a practice I call burning, where I just listen to music and dance. You just feed attention into the music, let your body do whatever it wants.
Oh, I do
Uh,
that.
yeah,
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 that's great. You call that burning. Wonderful. Yeah.
yeah. I did that after a breakup just to feel all the emotions and let them go
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
without letting them get into the mind and you go do crazy shit like go
No, you
drive.
you shake it out. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yep.
Literally take it out. Um, And then, the later stages of that practice, you're not burning emotions anymore unless you have to, but you can just go straight into bliss. You can
Hmm.
best way, and it's you need small doses of it. Well, now I'm really good at it. I can't do it for too long because then, I get too fired up. It's like too much energy, yeah,
Dysregulated. Interferes with sleep. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It interferes with sleep, all that. You can only I can only do a couple songs a day now. Is good. I have to ease it back. If I let the creature fully loose, one song is good. But like I said, with this dancing practice, that's where powers and shit come because I've literally been able to do stuff while dancing like this that should be impossible. Um, dancing on boats in rough waves and like walking up the side and stuff in ways that would be impossible. Um, uh,
Your reflexes are on point. I mean, I know plenty of Zen stories about people who do
writing,
Zen practitioners who do a lot of energy work. Mostly they don't talk about this thing, these kinds of things, but the
yeah,
senses and the reflexes become so attuned if you're doing this intensive energetic cultivation in various ways.
yeah,
Yeah, they can do things that to most people would seem, huh, what?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
running at full tilt in the dark through the woods and
yeah,
not hurting yourself, for instance.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
just an
Those,
example.
yeah, exactly. Um, and the powers are an act, they're a gift. They're not something I can do or create or master. You get into samadhi and it happens.
And they're
It's
not to be clung to, these
yeah,
these
yeah.
these kind of
They're
experiences, which
contextual.
you know very well, but for the sake of the audience,
Yeah, yeah,
cities, big whoop.
yeah. Cities are just like it's what happens in a certain set and setting. It's not nothing to do with you. It's not personal at all. It's got to do with where you were, when you were, and what you were doing. And amazing things can happen.
Yep.
Uh, and that's all it is. It's nothing personal. And of course, I've taken it personally and fucked it up. Woo!
Oh wow, I was able to do this incredible thing. I was able to have this special
Well,
experience. Look at
let me
me. Oh,
try and
whoa,
go
whoa,
get it
whoa.
back and work for
Uh-oh.
it.
Whoops. Not too fast.
Anyway, so where were we on my chronology? So yeah, even though I was all fucked up, I was able to practice through. And then in about 2017, I got access to some really good LSD. Um, and then I started listening. That's when I think Daniel Ingram was going on about his fire casino practice.
Yep.
And so, I was at the bottom of the barrel, fucked. I'd seen shrinks, I was about to get myself on antidepressants or something or meds and I was like, you know what, let me just dive into this fire casino practice. Nothing crazy. I did 30 minutes a day for like a year. And then the amazing thing is the way I kind of used the LSD, because I think it's somewhat unique and it was intuitive to me. And this is not a fucking recommendation to anyone. Do not fucking do this. It's insane. But I would do what I kind of call a meso-dose every like 4 or 5 days, which is kind of edge of tripping dose. And I would still go to work and stuff like this, which is nuts. Don't do it. I'm a fucking nutcase. Um, but and this is kind of another crazy thing. I could see where on the tab to cut, because the thing about LSD in the wild is dosing is very hard. Each tab might be different, right? So somehow I could see a gray line that wasn't actually there on the tab where to cut it to get that perfect meso dose. And I didn't combine LSD and the fire casino. I would do 30 minutes of fire casino, and the days I'd meso dose, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do fire casino.
Mm.
So for about a year, every 4 or 5 days, I would do this this edge of tripping dose, which is a very uncomfortable dose. It's not fun, guys. But I think there is huge benefit there because it helped my attention kind of bring itself back together. Just enough fighting, just enough tickle to get willpower and the constant and it worked synergetically with the candle flame, so that in throughout the span of the year of 2017, the world went from being gray to being too fucking bright.
Sure,
Um,
sure. I
so
mean, a lot of
now
LSD and fire casino will do that.
yeah, no, so I don't really do, I'll do LSD once or twice a year now. I don't do the meso doses ever. Since that one year, I've never done it again. Um, and Fire Casino, I do very rarely because it's too powerful. Um,
Yeah, no, I mean,
it's
if
too
you want to know
high.
more about fire casino, you can read Daniel's book,
Yeah,
which comes with a lot of warnings and cautions. It's in high
it's a
doses.
higher bit, yeah.
Yeah,
Um, but it's honestly, I think, probably one of the best places to start. I wouldn't be the only thing I'd start someone on, but if someone wanted to start meditation, just 5, 10 minutes a day of Fire Casino. Where was I again? What was I talking about?
but right before you dropped, what were you talking about? What were you talking about?
I
Fire
was talking
casino
about Fire Casino. Yeah, I think
and
it's
how that brought back vividness, emotion.
yeah, yeah. It brought back color because the world had been gray. And the amazing thing about the dark, or what I experienced of the Dark Knight, is you don't know the world's gray till color comes back, right? I mean, I didn't know till, wow, holy fuck, it's bright. Um, anyway, but the amazing thing about Fire Casino is that it's instant feedback. The weirder it is, the better. As soon as the world goes back to normal, or things go back to normal, then it's the feedback is amazing. I don't know, it's probably the best way to train in shamatha, um, that I know. I mean, there's better ways, but the cool thing
Yeah, I don't know.
is
I was actually thinking there. I don't know. Depends on the
I
person, I
think,
suppose. But
yeah, yeah, it depends on the person, and I'm not a teacher. I haven't fucking really taught anybody. um, but the other thing is, I think a lot of people need to access meditation through the right sense door.
yeah,
So
no, I think that is
trying
often
breathing
discounted.
meditate, yeah. A lot of people say, I can't meditate, I can't follow my breath. Well, you could listen, just listen to this,
There's these other senses.
yeah, yeah. Enter through another sense door. Um, try, and Fire Casino vision is one of our, that's our primary sense. So for a lot of people, it's much easier to enter, I find, through ears or eyes. and then
Yeah.
switched to walking or kinesthetic.
Yep.
Even breathing meditation is kinesthetic, right? Um, and that way, eyes and ears don't seem to bring up as much emotional trauma. It definitely fucking can, but I don't know.
And if
But
you just focus on eyes and ears, you can end up dissociating from the body, dissociating from emotion,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
can learn to that can go a bad direction as well. So,
yeah, yeah. You
caution, fair
can
warning.
be, yeah, yeah. And if you don't want the strange, and you don't want to get synchronicities and get into that other side of practice, don't do fire casino. I mean, that's
That's a
do it.
good recommendation. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Zen guy and you want your world to be whatever, you don't want
Oh,
to.
Zen goes for the wild and weird. The Zen that has mostly made its way over to North America
Yeah,
and
that's the
Europe,
Western version of Zen.
like Orthodox Zen, it's magical. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, and I find the Western strains have become Westernized. If you go to, Taiwan or something, Zen is not just Zen. There's going to be Pure Land, and there's
exactly.
going
It's a whole
to be
bunch of
everything.
things.
Yeah, cultural, natively cultural Buddhism is, you're going to have a mix of Taoism. It's going to be different from Thailand to China to,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, and different parts of China.
Each temple, each lineage has its own specific flavor, influences, different energy practices,
Yeah,
different koan curricula, um, depending.
yeah,
It's very
and
diverse.
a lot of that stuff probably always didn't come directly from the Buddhist tradition. It would have come from influences from Taoism or Confucianism or, who knows, all sorts of other little crazy things. But yeah, so I did Fire Casino. Color came back 2017, and then 2018, 19 just kind of continued on. In 2020 was the next kind of more major shift. And that's when 2019, 20, the other little piece of tech I learned, which is an amazing piece of tech that we don't fully understand yet, or the way people sell it and the way people understand it is all fucking wrong. Um, and that's the ability to read micro expressions, which are these little
I see.
motions of
Yeah, sure.
faith and the reason I learned this is because I wanted to understand emotions because I couldn't feel for however many years, or I was disassociated from my emotions. I was disassociated from the sensations of my face.
I imagine that also corresponded with the deficit in perceiving others. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And the other big practice tradition I did, which I totally forgot to mention, is Harding's Headless Way,
Okay.
um,
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
which is amazing. But the pitfall of that tradition is this derealization, depersonalization, overemphasis on the void, you know.
Sure.
And I
Can
did
lose embodiment. Can lose joy. Engagement. Play.
so in learning, so what I did was I learned how to make all these little motions with my face, so for disgust, it's like a little wrinkle by I can do it. If I can do it better, right? That's
Yep.
disgust.
Yep.
Right? Smelling bad cheese. And then there's um, fear. There's a whole bunch of different, so I could do them all. But learning how to do these with my face, it reverse engineered the ability to feel.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I do that little nose motion, just doing it and I'll feel disgust,
Yep.
right? Whether you like it or not, you do that motion, yeah. So it's amazing. So most people will learn this skill if they're like an FBI investigator, or they're learning it for the wrong fucking reasons. I learned this to re-inhabit my face,
Right.
and then with mindfulness, if I can notice myself feeling these emotions as I feel them,
Right.
in real time, and noticing how my face feels as it makes these motions. And um, that really helped to bring emotion back. And then, I also did accidentally one night did way too much MDMA. Do not fucking recommend it. Accidentally just ate a parachute that was way too much. And then, between learning to read micro expressions, it takes about 2 years to really learn how to do this properly. Um, and then that massive dose of MDMA and bang, back in my body, back in my heart. I was able to say nothing but love and mean it. Which is like I can't indescribable. I can't I can't, I can't even I'll tear apart right now. Um,
Well, words fail, don't they? They
they
always
fail.
will.
They
And yeah, I
fail.
mean, there's expression, but it will always be
Yeah,
an incomplete expression of completeness.
yeah. It's and this is what drives me crazy about Neo Advaita and all the rest is like you motherfuckers are halfway there. Keep on going. There's meaning and purpose and work to do in this world. And
Love,
you can
joy, engagement, not just
yeah,
attachment.
yeah. Love, joy, engagement. Being a real human fucking being with all our flaws and all our fuck ups. And I've cried
And
more.
wading into that
Yeah.
just
I've
with
cried.
a full and open heart. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've cried more since 2020 than I did before in my entire life. And it's the best thing ever. Um, Now I'm kind of, for a while there, was a little too sensitive. I had to, do a lot. I've had to do a lot of work to not be as sensitive. um, because I can be so tuned in to not only what I'm feeling, but what other people are feeling. There's times where I just sometimes, and because when feeling came back, it took a couple years, I'm still integrating it, integrating emotion and mind. So there's a while there I would kind of flip flop between operating from the mind and operating to emotion. And I caused a little bit of damage doing that. I kind of fuck some, you fuck it up.
I've been there.
Um,
Still there,
you
often
know,
enough.
fuck it up, right? Your head says one thing and then your emotions say another. And anyway, I'm still working through this. Um, but I sometimes can be too in tuned to what other people feel and disregard their mind, which is not good. Because the
No.
mind
Or
like
or
that.
disregard their feelings and only pay attention to what is coming out of their mouth, or
Yeah.
any kind of partial seeing will lead to a less than optimal response.
And then the other thing about this is it's not just and the amazing thing is that all of us can do this all the time,
Hmm.
right? So learning to read micro expressions, it's becoming aware of a process that we all already do.
Yeah.
So I'm not special. I'm not better than anyone because I'm aware of this. It's, but at the same time, it's like meditation. It's becoming aware of what's always already going on anyway, right? What we
And
always
then
are
acting
are.
from that, acting from that awareness,
Yeah,
acting as that, precise
yeah.
awareness. Yeah.
Um, and the cool thing about this is you learn that not only are you a receiver of emotions, you're a transmitter as well. So
Yeah.
learning how to do this has helped me better transmit love and transmit, you know, try and that was the amazing thing about Father Thomas is that, you know,
There's a transmitter right there.
yeah, 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 you know, I feel like I'm going to spend the rest of my life learning how to be that man.
I mean, that's a good life. That's a good life.
That's fine with me. I'm going to fuck it up a whole pile, and that's okay. I'm never going to give up. Um, and I used to be set, there was a while there where I was set in orthodoxy. This is Orthodox Christianity is the only way to get there. Da, 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 da. Now, um, I really, really love, and I think I need to dig more into Tantra because coming fully to life in the world as a layperson,
It does that
that,
well. That's what it's for.
yeah, yeah, it does that really well. Um, It really does. And there's tech there that you cannot find in, the Christian tradition is like Theravada. It's
Right.
designed for monks.
Yep.
It's designed for the renunciative life, or married people.
Sure.
It doesn't have much to say for, single people or, bi people or gay people or poly people. It
Not much to
doesn't,
say there at all.
no, it doesn't say anything about that. Um, and I'm not really that straight. I'm not 100% gay. I'm kind of somewhat bi. Like, I know what a hot guy looks like, and that's fine. um,
And I mean, classical tantra also doesn't have much to say to be like in the classical text and in
that's
the classical tradition. It's pretty homophobic. Not explicitly. It's not like this is evil, horrible, we should stamp it out. But there's no support there classically either. So that's worth knowing.
and I think there's like the fully knowing of oneself is the fully knowing of what you like and you don't like. And there is the one thing I agree with Freud on is it's not A or B. It's not often with many people, a 50-50. I'd say like I'm 60, 70% straight, um, you know, and that's okay. And I think there's,
Everybody's a little bit gay. I mean, some people would deny that, but um,
yeah,
well,
uh,
whatever everyone's experience is whatever their experience is.
yeah. And that's something that Christianity just doesn't really address, but at the same time, it's at the heart of my prayer, the practice I've been practicing, and that's nothing but love. That's what I've
Are
been
you
saying.
you're gay for Jesus? Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, I'm gay for Jesus. He's hot. Um, I just love everyone, and that's okay. I really just love everyone. And that's it's not here nor there, but yeah, it's just the fruition of practice is that yeah, I kind of like everyone, and that's okay. And where was I? So that was 2020 emotions. Have I really done too much since?
I
No.
mean, that work never really ends.
Yeah,
Again,
that never
from
really is. Um,
so I hear from those who have been at this much longer than me,
yeah,
decades and decades,
um,
many decades, like into their 80s.
yeah, 100%. Um, and then the other thing I've noticed recently, and this is something I kind of need to dig more into Tantra about, is that there's, once when the bliss of shamatha soaks into
Hmm.
the body becomes fluid.
Hmm.
It moves with grace and ease
Illusory
and
body is what it's
yeah,
called, or I mean that's one term for it.
yeah. Tell
Yeah,
me more, because I'd love to learn more about that. Because I see the way,
we can do that offline.
yeah, we could do that off. But I see the way, these Tibetan saints, I'll call them that if it's okay.
Yeah,
Um,
sure. No, I mean living Buddhas in some cases. You know.
yeah, how they're depicted in, their um, whatever it is. What do you call it? Iconography.
Hmm.
Um, the way they stand and the way they move, the little high, it's oh yeah, I get it, I see it, yeah.
Hmm. No,
When
that it's there isn't a self in there moving the body and making those expressions. That is
it,
like radiant dynamic awareness
yeah,
articulating the body.
yeah, yeah, and I get that now. I don't do it all the time, but when I'm in that crispness, when I go back to the Bahia Sutta and when I'm in the seeing, it's just the scene. The body just naturally does that, and it's amazing
Awareness
now.
moving as the body.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's a different kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's a living teaching because I can now kind of see because of my attunement with emotions now, I can see the very subtle but profoundly positive effect that has on people around you. It's not, and I
Body
don't,
language, whether people are aware of it or not, we communicate with the body
yeah,
constantly, and
exactly.
it has an effect. It has effects.
Yeah. And that's going to be, I think, my practice for the rest of my life is coming deeper and deeper and deeper into the heart and the body. Um, and for a little while there, I was kind of mad, and I still am. I need to not be so mad about the Dark Knight and about being struck by lightning and about, it's part of me still hurt about losing like 8 years of my life, 7 years
And
of my
you probably wouldn't have the depth of compassion and care, however deep that is, if you
yeah,
hadn't gone through something horrible like that.
yeah. And I mean, now I see, anyone who's I'll do anything for anyone in a wheelchair or disabled. It's just my heart breaks. It's instant love and
Yeah.
compassion, and it's you know, I see it doesn't matter. It's anyway, yeah, there's people with mental challenges, autism, that Down syndrome. My heart, it's you know the normal people would kind of feel off, a little off, but now I'm just like, oh, you know, it's just yeah, just burning compassion, um, and no judgment, no judgment at all. There was this young lady who came to the hotel I work at, um, and what was her name was Bridget. Um, and it's amazing because she's a living saint, I swear to God, because she couldn't control her body at all, but she was totally free, totally at
Mm,
peace,
yeah.
completely and totally happy, at peace,
Sure.
loved
Deep
everyone.
equanimity. Total
Oh
equanimity.
my
Yeah.
God. Just, and right, her name Bridget, there's a form of Catholic monasticism called Bridgentines who are cloistered, right? They never leave the monastery, and they find peace stuck in a place you can't leave.
Now that, yeah, the body is
Yeah.
that for some people to varying degrees. Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's just, anyway, it's just so yeah. There's living saints everywhere, once you open your eyes. Hold on. Um,
We're
anyway,
coming up on the hour. So if there's anything kind of in conclusion that you'd like to share with people, um,
just fucking stick to it, man. Don't give up. Churchill, motherfucker, right? Don't give up. Whatever you do, once you start this path, just don't give up. And you don't need a teacher. You can, like, haven't had a main teacher. I've had lots of teachers, and that's okay. I've had lots of mentors, and I've fucked up in every way possible. I still am gonna. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up.
I can't think of a better way to end it than that. Thanks so much for coming on, Captain
Thank you.
Blondie.
It's a
And is there anywhere you want me to direct people? You're on X,
I'm on
Twitter.
X with Captain Blondie.
Yeah.
You can find me there, chase me down.
Yeah.
Um, I'm happy to talk to anyone. I'm quite busy, but I'm happy to help anyone, particularly anyone's going through dark night. That's my soft spot. Um, anyone having a hard time with meditation, my heart goes out to you.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing so openly from your heart. And take care. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.
Guys.